Good, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us from whatever part of the world you're in. Welcome to the financial literacy event, Money Matters, the importance of financial literacy for women worldwide. My name is Sajida Shroff, and I am privileged to be president of Harvard Global Women's Empowerment. Kindly do note we are recording today so that we can share this event via GlobalWE social media platforms. Harvard GlobalWE is a shared interest group of the Harvard Alumni Association. We are dedicated to the empowerment of women through education, dialogue, and connection among individuals working for women's rights and freedoms worldwide. We highlight and raise awareness about issues concerning women's empowerment worldwide, including, but not limited to, education, political rights, freedom from violence, women's health, and economic empowerment. Our board of directors is as global as our interests, with representatives in the US, Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. In fact, I'm a Canadian, but currently live in Dubai. Our programs chair, Arthi, lives in India. Our president-elect, Leah, is in the Chicago area. Our secretary, Janina, is now based out of San Francisco. Our treasurer, Eric, is in Las Vegas. Our marketing chair, Kendall, is in St. Louis. Our website chair is also in California. Our Connect chair, Barbara, is in the Chicago area. Our essay contest lead and founder, Julie, is also in the Chicago area. Our outreach chairs, Richard and Rebecca, are based in Turkey and Singapore, respectively. And our outgoing membership chair, Corinne, is based in Cleveland. And of course, our student group lead, Hannah, is based in Cambridge on campus. Usually, as a team, we try to come together at least once a year, but haven't been able to do so since we last met up live in February 2020, just before our world changed. Interestingly, while the pandemic forced us to stay in, it did enable GlobalWE to focus on connecting more. In fact, GlobalWE has done more programming in the last 2 years than ever before, which has really helped us reflect and learn from each other. Kitty O'Meara sums this up well. And when the danger passed and the people joined together again, they grieved their losses and made new choices and dreamed new images and created new ways to live and heal the earth fully as they had been healed. We hope that GlobalWE is one of your partners to help with the healing, connecting, and making new choices. We also welcome your engagement as a volunteer with GlobalWE. In fact, we currently have several openings. If you're interested, please email us to learn more or check the GlobalWE website for details. We're a really fun team to work with. Also, do remember that we are a 501c3, so any donations will be tax-free. Of course, we welcome your support. Donations can be made by clicking on the Donate tab on our website at www.harvardglobalwe.org, where you can donate using a credit card or find the information for how to donate by check. Now, for today, Harvard GlobalWE welcomes all participants to this conversation. To be here is a step forward, as women's empowerment is not about being silent. If each one of us can leave here with just one insight about how critical and valued women are within the financial ecosystem and how important it is to empower us to persevere for our own financial literacy and awareness, we have succeeded. If the event sparks conversations tomorrow with colleagues and classmates and coworkers, we've succeeded. If just 2 people connect today who will support our mission, we have succeeded. We are a global organization, and having this conversation would be a luxury to many women in other parts of the world, and we recognize that. We are grateful for the wonderful support we've received from other SIGs and clubs, as well as the Harvard Alumni Association, in helping us get the word out about today. And of course, we're very thankful to our wonderful Harvard GlobalWE student group for all their support as well. Our perspective today, and hopefully our discussions, will be framed from the women's empowerment paradigm. We ask that all are respectful of one another's views. And remember, we are recording today and will post on GlobalWE's website as well as our social media platforms. If anyone has any concerns, please do let us know. We will remain focused on the topic and the issues. And as a group, we do strongly believe that women's rights are human rights and are not owned by any particular ideology or party. Normally, we try to have an event like this on campus with cookies and lots of pictures. So let's take a quick moment to take a screenshot. Please turn on your videos and your cameras if you're comfortable having your picture shared via GlobalWE social media. We just give everybody a second to put on their cameras. All right, Arti, ready? Leah? Thank you. Thank you, everyone. As a team, we are so excited to continue our tradition of having discussions and conversations. With much gratitude to the entire board for their support, and especially Arti, who spearheaded today, Kendall and Eliza and their wonderful marketing team, and Leah and Janina for all of their support. Before we begin our discussions, let me also thank you all for joining us and express our deep gratitude to Dharitri, Aslam, and to Beth. And of course, thank you to Arti for moderating. On a personal note, and I hope I don't tear up here, this is my last event as president, and I am so very glad it is focused on such a key topic for women. Financial literacy is the foundation for women's empowerment. I would now like to introduce Arti Gupta, who will be the moderator for today. Arti is a member of the GlobalWE board, our programs chair, and a successful investor, as well as a TEDx speaker on financial inclusion of women. Please join me in welcoming Arti. Arti?
Thank you, Sajida. Thank you for the kind words, and couldn't agree with you more on the importance of financial literacy and this topic on the path for women empowerment. A very good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Again, it gives me so much happiness to moderate today's event, as the topic is something which is very, very close to my heart. Money matters, the importance of financial literacy for women worldwide. And I stress on the point worldwide. Women are 3 times as likely as men to say they can't afford to save for retirement and have significantly lower rates of financial literacy. Women also make up the majority of caregivers and are 3 times more likely than men to quit their jobs to take care for a family member. Generally speaking, women earn less, save less, and live longer, but are still responsible for the same living expenses men pay. And this is not a phenomenon that is restricted to a country or an ethnicity. This is global. According to a recent report by the UN, if we continue to work at this pace, in order to achieve gender equality, the world can take another 286 years. Yes, let that sink in, 286 years. While on one hand, this was disheartening, I think this was just the motivation we all needed to double and triple our ongoing efforts in this sphere. And financial literacy is the medium we can use to close this gap. There is no doubt that there is struggle for women worldwide to become financially independent and get themselves educated on this. But what makes any human being less upset about challenges and perceived obstacles is knowing that others share those concerns and experiences. And that is what platform like Harvard GlobalWE aims to do, bringing forth such discussions. Again, I'm extremely happy to have this illustrious panel today with me. Each of them is a champion within their own space, bringing about remarkable change in the lives of women when it comes to financial education. My first panelist is Dharitri Patnaik, an entrepreneur and philanthropist. Dharitri has more than 26 years of experience working to empower some of the most vulnerable sections of the society, including women, children, and underprivileged people of India. In 2014, she founded Hamara Bachpan Trust, which works with people living in poverty spread over multiple cities and villages, with 67,000 women and 135,000 children as active members. And Harvard alumni, Dharitri was also awarded the John Kenneth Galbraith Fellowship in Harvard and has also been awarded a number of other recognitions. Welcome, Dharitri. My second speaker is Aslam Denizman, an entrepreneur, financial expert, fintech founder, and passionate advocate for women's economic empowerment. She is the founder and CEO of Money, an app to steer users away from unnecessary spending towards saving for their financial goals. She also founded Para Durumu, a multi-channel financial literacy initiative that produces interactive, user-oriented content to help people better manage their money. She holds an MBA in financial management from MIT Sloan and a Bachelor of Science in Industrial Management from Cornell. Welcome, Aslam. My third speaker for today is Beth Marcelo, SVP and Director, Women's Business Development, PNC Bank. As Director of Women's Business Development for PNC Bank, Beth is dedicated to accelerating women's financial equality. Under her leadership, the bank trains, develops, and supports more than 4,500 PNC certified women's business advocates, men and women bankers and advisors who offer a differentiated customer experience to women financial decision makers across the PNC enterprise. Wow, what a wonderful panel. Welcome, everyone. I would like to start the discussion with each of you taking 2 minutes to talk about the work you do and about why financial inclusion and literacy is important to you and the women of today. Maybe we can start with Özlem.
Thank you very much for having us here. It's a pleasure when the missions align and you find people, you surround yourself with people whose heartbeat for the same matters. So financial literacy is freedom. So, you know, in order to get to financial freedom, I mean, to freedom, you need financial freedom. And for that, you need financial literacy and financial inclusion. And but, you know, there are a lot of obstacles for that, which I don't know, maybe we'll go into it in a little while. So, but I'd like to give my perspective. It's 12 years. I spent my life only on this, financial literacy and financial inclusion of women, especially in the context of Turkey. And Turkey is 80 million people, and women in Turkey had a right to vote before Switzerland, before Japan, before many other countries in 1934. But in financial literacy, we are behind. So I'll stop here. We can, you know, go further.
But thank you, Özlem, and we look forward to hearing the wonderful work you've done in this sphere in Turkey. And what do you think about the way women have been educating themselves in this sphere? But moving on to Beth, can you tell us a little bit about what you do, your work at PNC, and also why financial education is so important for the women of America today?
Yep. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. And I really want to give a shout out to Leah. It was Leah who connected on the web with PNC and with our Project 257, which I'll share with you. And I'm really honored to be part of this panel today. So perhaps I should say that if you're unfamiliar with PNC, we're a full service US-based financial institution. We're headquartered in Pittsburgh, which is where I am today. Our footprint is coast to coast. We're in the top 30 major US metropolitan areas. And in terms of size, we're about the 5th largest bank in the United States. I manage women's business development at the bank, as already shared. It's a practice that began about 20 years ago when the bank began to recognize that more and more often our customers were women, and the individuals who influence financial decisions for families, for companies, for institutions that we wanted to do business with were women. But at the same time, the majority of our bankers were men, particularly the bankers that were serving middle market and large companies and institutions. So for us, women's business development has always been about recognizing women as key financial decision makers. And the data bears that out. The key for me, the key to a healthy economy is financial equality. And that's why financial literacy is so important for women. In 2021, a study by the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco estimated that $1.7 trillion, trillion with a T, or roughly 8 percentage points would have been added to the 2019 US gross domestic product if women had participated in the workforce at the same rate as men. And our PNC economists have told me that additional influx would have meant an additional 8.5 million more jobs, and roughly $1.5 trillion, so again, a T, in additional consumer spending. And so an impact like that means that everyone benefits from gender equality, not just women, and including financial institutions like PNC that are committed to helping people move forward financially. And that's why recognizing this opportunity in the context of economic inequality is why we launched Project 257, Accelerating Women's Financial Equality, last year. And already you mentioned, I think you said 286 is the new number, but in 2020, the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Report said that same statistic, that if the world just continued plotting toward gender equality at the same pace we do currently, it would still take 2.5 centuries for women to catch up to men from an economic perspective. So we launched Project 257. It has given our, a renewed purpose and I would say engagement to our 2 decades of support for female financial decision makers. And we believe that we can really have an impact in all 4 of the areas that, according to the report, are why women are held back economically: underrepresentation in the workforce, unequal access to credit, pay inequity, and unpaid work. And so I'm sure we're going to talk about these 4 areas as we continue the conversation today. And I think we can all agree that we just need to work together to close the gap.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with with you more, to kind of synergizing our efforts together to kind of close this gap. Dharitri, a little about what you do and why you think financial inclusion and literacy is important, especially because I know that you work within India with the weaker sections of the society and a lot with women as well.
Namaste and good evening from India. Thank you, Aarti, for having me here. As a child growing up in a traditional Indian household, I witnessed all financial decisions were taken by my father and the male members. And when my father suddenly passed away at a young age, my mother was left clueless about the finances. And this had a huge impact on our lives. This was the foundation of my strong belief that women need to be financially literate and independent. Not just earn, but also know how to make the optimal use of their financial resources. This is what also informed my work on women empowerment with women in India, mostly in Orissa, the eastern part of India where I come from and where I'm based. And I work with women in tribal areas, with indigenous communities, in rural, and also women living in low socioeconomic neighborhoods and cities. And what we've seen is, even if they're informal workers, most of them are informal workers, farmers, or homemakers. One major gap, what we found, was being financially literate. And being financially literate, after our programs, we've also seen that, which we're going to discuss later on, is that a lot of issues women getting back into the workforce, women becoming entrepreneurs, violence against women coming down. There were a lot of indicators that led us to believe that financial literacy is key. So with the fast changing economic and social scenario, it's also very pertinent for women to be economically empowered. Financial literacy is an important tool of inclusion and empowerment for women. So financial literacy could be as simple as financial knowledge that helps women with budgeting, saving, investment in a unit like a family. So just like we save for school fees of our children, or for many micro entrepreneurs that started their business from homes post the COVID pandemic, financial literacy, as we've seen, is the key. And this financial literacy, as I mentioned earlier, leads to financial inclusion through access to education and awareness, resources, financial products, and services. There's a whole lot of inclusive social security measures offered by the governments and non-government entities, which women can tap into. But until unless we're aware of those schemes, it's very difficult to tap into or leverage those schemes. And on a broader canvas, the whole idea of sustainable development goals can be achieved only through gender equality and women's empowerment. So we don't have to wait for 2.5 centuries more. And we can start by really focusing on financial, and I would say not only financial, but financial and digital literacy. Our whole world has changed and transformed post-COVID pandemic. And it's very, very important for us to lay emphasis on these two pillars of development.
Thank you, Dharitri. And I agree with you on the part about adding digital literacy to this aspect as well. Like it gets the world more connected. Özlem, as the past president and current advisor of the Financial Literacy and Inclusion Association of Turkey, can you give us an overview of financial education situation amongst women in Turkey? Is financial literacy and inclusion of women taken up seriously in the country? And what has been your experience, especially how progressive or proactive is the government in promoting this?
I just, we just have a report that just came out. It's a research report on the statistics on what's happening in Turkey the last 2 years, the last 2 years. But I'll tell you first, last 10 years, last 20 years, there's progress. Last 10 years, there's more progress, but the last 2 years, there's regression going back. So part of it, I'll come to the statistics, but part of it come, from the system, society, and part of it come from the woman herself, just like the problem in itself, right? And the prejudice, the access to credit, I mean, everything is context, right? Context is very important. And now I think not just in Turkey, but globally, we are in the midst of high inflation, economic crisis or crisis of everything, let's say, war, crisis. I mean, it's just so hard for human brain or soul to process all this, what's going on. So, and Turkey is no different. And women, as you know, we, number one in our application, we have about 100,000 registered users. We didn't even launch yet, but and half of them are women. It's women and men. And what we see is that in women, you pick your goal, why you want to save and invest. And majority women, secure future. That's what they want, secure future and education of the children. As you know, it all goes into more developmental things when woman earns money. But what we see the last 2 years, there's some regression. Maybe there's some loss of hope. Maybe COVID, post-COVID, there's a different whole context in everybody. But there's something different. I think that's what needs to be, tackled. I believe that issues can, business cases should be made with the context. And now the context is quite different than what has been. And, people on average are much more, reactionary. They like to express themselves on TikTok, on Instagram. So it's no more keeping it on yourself, and it's just, seeing and comparing yourself with others and not understanding mentally why you're not like Aisha and Fatma and why you're the way you are. And because you don't do these 10 things on the financial behavior and you're not included in the system and etc. So somebody has to break it down for the person, right? And that breakdown doesn't happen, okay, let's go to a classroom. I have been devoting, again, my last 12 years, I have started up several institutions and the Financial Literacy Association of Turkey. And what I have seen is that financial education, okay, but financial behavior change help. I find it much more impactful. That's why I'm a fintech now that's on financial behavior change. So because nobody wants and has the time in this fast world with all this information going around and just go and learn, because you just need to learn on the go and take it and put it in your daily behaviors. Increase your ability for certain things and increase your motivation for certain things and decrease your ability for certain things. I mean, for example, how does just the statistics came out, as I said on the research report, long-term planning has gone down, for example, considerably. Okay, in Turkey, we're not big long-term planners because usually there's no long-term, you don't see it, but then there's the the stress factor of money has really risen. I'm not going into the numbers for time's sake, but just having a saving account has, it has fallen down. So there's something different is what I'm seeing from the Turkey context post-COVID, and I'll stop here to continue.
Sure. No, Aslam, I mean, I completely agree with you. And I mean, what at least in my opinion, it's not just a Turkey phenomena, right? I think the biggest negative impact of the last 2.5+ years, whether it's COVID or the ongoing war, has been on women, whether it's in terms of more women losing jobs, more women-owned businesses shutting down, or access to education and healthcare. So I think it's kind of diminished the efforts which have been made in the last decade. And we all really need to kind of pull up our socks on this, because it could really spiral out all the other efforts which we've been doing. And Beth, that brings me to you. The United States was ranked 51st in progress towards gender parity, trailing far behind many other wealthy and developed countries in terms of how close they've come to closing the overall gender gap. What role do you think financial literacy plays in closing this gender gap? Whether it's access to credit, starting up a business. And I mean, I would like you to kind of even talk about the role women on this call can play, like, in reducing that gap, whether it's students, it's working professionals, or business owners.
Yeah, thank you, Artie. It's it's a really difficult dilemma to unpack, especially when we think about the United States. And I would first of all say that I think everybody, men and women, have a role to play. But when I think about the challenges in the US, I think about the reaction when we launched Project 257 in the bank last year. A senior executive, a woman, challenged me with this idea, like, but really the rate in the US can't be 257 years. Like, the implication was that, it wasn't that bad, that this was not our problem in the US or PNC's problem to solve, like that we were exaggerating the dilemma. And that was based on her personal experience, right? That women in the US don't have it that bad, that we're better off, or, this idea that we should be better off. But we know that we're not. The, 257 is there, 286 or whatever the number is, it's huge. And it's not just a US problem. I mean, it's a global problem, not just a US problem. And, what my response to her was, well, yes, the statistics speak for themselves, but also, even if it was 25 years, that's still too much. And we need to tackle it. And I would also share a story. Similarly, we launched a program at PNC called Men as Allies to encourage more men within our company to be more supportive of women in our company to help them progress. And so when we launched this pilot project, I listened in on a roundtable of men, and they were all mid-level managers, so managers of people. And when we shared some of the really sobering data about the discrimination that women face in the workforce today, one of them said, but didn't all this go away with Anita Hill? Well, for those in the audience that recognize the name Anita Hill, that was 30 years ago. And yet here, when Anita Hill surfaced the allegations of harassment against her boss, who is now a Supreme Court justice, but his, he had this idea that problem was already solved, and that American women are no longer subject to inequities like this. So, so I think that some of the challenge is that we deny the facts, and that holds us back. I would also add, and this is just my personal observation, that, you know, maybe the issue is less about like financial illiteracy. You know, we kind of, many people know what we need to do, but maybe it's more about contentment with financial dependence instead of financial independence. And, you know, I think in the US, as in many other parts of the globe, women and girls aren't encouraged to become financially independent. And that puts women in a financially fragile state, often dependent on like parents or a partner for money. And together as a unit, we're financially healthy, but when the partner leaves or dies, we're often left uninformed and broke sometimes. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard stories from women entrepreneurs that, you know, they were unlikely entrepreneurs, but they had to step in and make it work whenever their husband died. And then they found out that, you know, the wealth they thought they had, you know, really wasn't there. And I think that's because there isn't widespread education for women on how to build our own wealth. We can manage a checkbook, but building wealth isn't something that women have been encouraged to do. And sometimes I think women see the notion of taking care of ourselves financially as, you know, as selfish. And, you know, generally speaking, we know that women, you know, tend to take care of everyone else before they take care of themselves. So those are some of.
Yeah, absolutely, Beth. Couldn't agree with you more on this, you know, on all the points. We definitely need men as allies. We need them to join and understand the purpose why we're doing this, because financial education and literacy is not just a women's issue. It is a family issue, you know. What if something happens to your partner? And, you know, like you said, there have been so many cases, and it's sort of come, I think, more into spotlight post-COVID, because there've been untimely deaths and putting women in these situations. So we really need to kind of push this purpose stronger and harder now. Moving on, Dharatri, you work very closely at the ground level with a number of women in villages in and around India. Can you brief us a little about the situation of penetration of financial literacy amongst women in these areas, and the kind of work we can do to kind of help them?
Yeah, Aarti, India comes with its own set of complex issues and contradictions. At a macro level, thanks to the government of India's inclusion promotion policies, now close to 81% women have bank accounts. The account ownership more than doubled in the past decade. But you'll be surprised to know 54% of women account holders did not use their account in the past year, as against 43% of male account owners. There are a host of issues behind this low usage, and one could be the low financial literacy. According to a survey by National Center for Financial Education, which is an agency promoted by the federal like the Reserve Bank of India and other financial sector regulators, the overall financial literacy in the country stands at only 27%. And where I come from, it's only 11%. In 2014, the government of India launched a holistic scheme called Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, which allows banks to create basic savings deposit accounts, which help ensure basic financial inclusion for all, including women. This has proved to be a game changer of sorts. Now, when everywhere you go in the rural areas, in low socioeconomic neighborhoods, you find almost every woman has a Jan Dhan Yojana account in a financial institution, in a bank. This not only has radically improved inclusion of a large unbanked population, but also it has worked as an accelerator in bridging the gender gap in account ownership. According to a report, by April 2022, 451 million accounts were opened under this scheme, out of which 55.6% belong to women. The scheme ensured women's access to banking and a whole bouquet of services and opportunities that they do not know even exist. My nonprofit, Hamara Bachpan Trust, which is a pan-India nonprofit that works primarily with women, has trained more than 25,000 women over the last few years on financial literacy. These are women living in rural areas and in slums and urban neighborhoods. Most of them are informal workers, gardeners, farmers and homemakers. We have been using Gap Inc.'s Personal Advancement and Career Enhancement Financial Literacy module. This training tool is designed to encourage women to use financial literacy to manage their financial resources effectively, thus being financially secure and recover from distress. Because here we're talking about a population that's constantly in economic distress. Through this training, we've linked hundreds of micro and nano women entrepreneurs to financial institutions for loans. This is a huge area because access to finance, access to loans, there's a huge gap and inaccessibility, especially for women living in far off, remote, rural areas in India. The women got to know the power of compounding, purpose-wise savings, options available in banks, financial planning, budgeting, borrowing, and risks of falling into the traps of exploitative informal financial service providers, or as we call them, money lenders here. In the digital era, like I had mentioned earlier, that we need to link both financial literacy with digital literacy. We've been holding a lot of digital awareness camps and mobile digital labs to impart financial literacy to women living in disadvantaged situations and in poverty. The training has helped women access various government schemes and policies. One such is the Unified Payments Interface, or the UPI, which is a system that powers multiple bank accounts into a single mobile application, merging several banking features, seamless fund routing, and merchant payments into one hood. And all this is for free. And we've encouraged the women we work with to access all this. We've also witnessed a lot of encouraging trends across the country. More than 81% account holders are women under the Stand Up India scheme. More than 70% of the Mudra loan, which is a loan that the government has facilitated for micro entrepreneurs, are women. More than 2 billion USD has been sanctioned for women account holders. So what we see, Aarti, is that over the last few years, and even this post-COVID pandemic, there's been a lot of focus and emphasis on women's access to financial resources. So we're seeing a lot of positive trends emerging, and also it's also how information is accepted. One is, while you do a training, you can do awareness camps, but it's how much women internalize. I think there's been a demand. So it's always there was more from the supply side, and now I think there's a demand from the women to know more, to be more in control over their financial resources, because COVID has changed, as we've all been discussing, the entire dynamics.
Absolutely, absolutely, Dharitri. And it's heartening to hear the number of steps at least the governments of different countries are taking to kind of bridge this gap. I also agree with you on the point that just opening accounts is not enough, right? Because that's not the solution. In the past, a lot of government policies have been made in different countries to encourage more women to opening more accounts, whether it's a slightly higher interest rate or whatever the steps are, but just that is not enough. I think it's important to make them understand the need for managing their income, the need for savings, the need to understand investments and how to grow that wealth is extremely important. You know, there are a number of women on this call who would love to hear simple steps they can start taking to learn more about investments and managing their money. A lot of times I feel women who are earning members of the family also do not play an active role in the management of investments of themselves or the family. So maybe we can just quickly go around the panel and 2 or 3 steps which you can kind of, or tips you can give to those joining us today about how one can either start or enhance their journey of financial education.
I'll start. So I think, well, first of all, I think that it's really interesting, and I don't know if it's depressing or encouraging that we're all sort of saying some of the same things. So I think that we know that women are good savers, but they're not building wealth, right? They're not risk as when it comes to their money, they're not taking the same risks that men do. And so, I mean, if you're in the US, I would encourage you to encourage folks to reach out. There are many opportunities for financial literacy, for financial education. It is just that idea of putting it to practice. And so, working with whoever your bank is to look at some of the simple things that you can do to begin saving and investing in the US. And I'm guessing in other places as well. Women's investment clubs, just like a book club, women are getting together, they're educating themselves, and they're investing small amounts in the market and learning how to invest. If you have if you have a little more income or disposable income at your fingertips, I would encourage you to seek out, maybe angel funds. I was fortunate enough to be a founding member of an angel fund in Pittsburgh, where our mission was, we were mostly women investing in mostly women-owned businesses, mostly within our region of the country. And that is still a fantastic experience. We've invested all of our money, and now we're hoping to generate some nice returns. But the education part of it, to be involved in this fund, to work together with other women who I didn't know, and I got to expand my network, but to learn how to do due diligence, and to be able to support other women in their work as entrepreneurs, that was really gratifying. So if that is something that is within the realm of the women in your network to do, I found that to be really fulfilling, to help other people, but also educate yourself more about the process.
Fantastic, Beth. I think financial literacy clubs is a great idea to be a part of. And I couldn't agree with you more about creating this fund or investing more in women-owned businesses. I'm personally an early stage investor into startups, and I'm saying this, I say this again and again, investing in women is not an altruistic move. It actually, there is data that women-owned businesses are more profitable. So, and I've seen that in my portfolio as well. So that's a great tip out there. Özlem, over to you. With your app all about saving and investment, what are a couple of tips you can give our audience here today?
Well, when it is what to eat is right, well for you, that it's very simple, right? But you just don't do it. I mean, it's the same thing in the money matters. So that is why, from what I have seen the last 12 years of solely focusing on this, and especially measuring everything with our app now, which is all about behavior change. We are about financial behavior changes. And if anybody's interested in that, please contact me. I'm happy to, share knowledge, as you said at the very beginning. But what we see is that, it is not about really knowing after a point. It's about why you want to do that. Why should you change behavior? Why should you act any different? Why should you go to the investment club? The why, there must be a very strong conviction. So I would say that number one thing, find your conviction as to why you do this. I think Beth told about the importance of independence. I mean, is the business case made enough for this? And Dorothy also mentioned about this. So what does it mean? I mean, I think that you can't really dream of something that you don't know how if you haven't seen it with your mother, or role models. And then so that's the first thing I would say. Find your conviction as to why you want to get financially independent, and ask women around you, hey, are you financially independent? No. Oh, okay. Do you have a reason why you should be? Hey, I don't. Well, let's think of a reason. Why don't we have some tea? Like, carry the conversation. It's, so I would say this is number one. And obviously your community, your, Jim Rohn, 5 people around you, just make it all. So find people like this, find other, people who are showing good financial behaviors, who are investing. And increase your disposable income so you can do all that. For example, in Monai, in my app, we have a clear rule: invest first, spend later. For wants, we separate all the spendings into wants and needs, and from the wants we find your sweet spot of spending. Let's say it's shoes, let's say it's electronics, or it's, everybody has a sweet spot. And then we actually have these deeply behavior science oriented conversational AI talking with the person with their own data, very personalized, and talking and trying to understand why it is that they're doing that spending. And so if they could take that money, that would go into investment, and then big path to their financial independence. So just showing it to their eyes, and here it is, and this is how you do it. So make the ability high and make the motivation high is our methodology in a nutshell.
Super, great points. Financial discipline, extremely important. Finding your conviction, why you want to do it, is always a great idea. And peer education is fabulous. You get educated, you educate your neighbor, or learn from your neighbor or your peer group. Again, fantastic points, Özlem. Over to you, Dharitri. Some tips or suggestions for our members here.
I think I would agree with both my co-panelists. First is the conviction, and I would say we should not shy away from being financially independent, literate, and being in control of our financial resources. So, because what we've seen is there's lack of interest in managing finances, and that's why most of the time we end up in the situation as we are today. So at an individual level, I think women should show interest, start investing. There are so many like fintech companies and apps, as well as fund managers. If you have a lot of disposable income, you can go to, or if you do not, then like your peer group and others who we can always seek support from. Then at a say government level, I think like access to education, access to financial literacy must improve. Non-profits and other organizations have played a key role, but I think government must not use blanket policies to improve financial literacy and inclusion. We need very clear gender-specific targets, integrating gender perspective into the plan, design, implementation, and monitoring and evaluation of policies, regulatory measures, and expenditure is a must to promote equality across genders and in combating discrimination. Administration at federal, state, and district levels must mandate gender-sensitive programs to achieve this. I think we all should talk about financial literacy more and more. Our curriculums in school and higher grades must include modules on financial literacy. I think it should start from the very beginning so that we don't have to wait for us to become adults to earn and then talk about financial literacy. So it should start from the very beginning.
Fantastic. And couldn't again agree with you more about financial education starting at a very early age. I think we teach children how to earn money or skills to earn money, but we do not teach them the skills to manage that money. So very, very important to include financial education in school. I personally am a big advocate of that. And so thank you, panelists. You all have been wonderful. And I did have a couple of more questions for you, but in the interest of time, I'm going to move to some questions from the audience, and happy whoever would like to take them up. I'm going to just put it out and say it how we've received it. So going for the first question, what solutions are there for improving financial literacy in the US?
Well, I think that we've talked about some of them, but I think, I think some of it, and echoing our other panelists, that women need to, become more financially independent and adjust their mindset. It's such a big problem. I don't even know, how to begin to tackle it. But I do think that is one to create. There are a lot of companies and a lot of individuals that are, and a lot of organizations, and I've put our partnership with Corliss, formerly known as CEO, in the chat. And they're a fantastic organization that's based in Canada, and they provide 0 interest loans to women and non-binary entrepreneurs. And so by supporting Corliss, we're helping to get the word out, to accelerate their growth by increasing awareness, so that maybe more women who want to support other women can contribute to their no interest loan pool. And that idea of women helping other women is is something that I think is really powerful. We can't eliminate the 257 years on our own, because it's not our fault that we got there, but I do think that we can work together to help narrow that gap. The other thing that I will just, maybe a bit of encouragement, just yesterday, I looked at some data. Twice a year, PNC does a economic outlook survey with entrepreneurs across the country, men and women. And once a year, we focus only on women. And I just saw the data from that survey. And for the first time, I was seeing so many more points of differentiation between women entrepreneurs and men entrepreneurs. And one of them that really stood out was, for the first time, I saw that overall entrepreneurs, the majority of them don't seek out credit, don't seek out loans or lines of credit. But for the first time, women said that they were planning in the next 6 months to seek out a loan or a line of credit, more women than men. And that was so encouraging to me, because the whole sort of thread through this survey, I was seeing that women, and maybe it was the pandemic, that women decided that they just needed to, step up and create opportunities for themselves. But I saw this whole thread through the Economic Outlook survey, where women really were becoming more financially confident. And maybe that's the word, we haven't used that too much, but this idea of just feeling more confident in our ability to be financially independent.
Absolutely, and thank you for that, Beth. Another question which we had was, does financial literacy change in different countries? And each one of you is from a different part of the globe, and you've heard each other. Do you think there is a difference in how women approach financial education in your country as opposed to what you've heard from your other panelists? Maybe a sentence or two from each one of you on this.
I mean,
sure, Oslo.
I can go first. I mean, for some countries, it's more survival. And for some countries, it's more wealth building. So unless you pass through the survival, which means you feel secure, you can pay, you can deal with that, you can't go to the other part. So, and I'm afraid that the crises, global crises, which we feel a lot in Turkey with some 90% inflation rate now. So, the first things to be cut is from women, for women, so then this makes me scared, not just on a Turkey level, on a global level. I'm talking about this. It's just all the things that have progressed the last, say, 20, 30 years. Is that going to go back 50 years? That's, I think, one of us. So we really have to stand there, because you can't do anything without the budget. budget. So you need a crazy person and a budget. So you, as long as we locate, one of us locate the crazy person, give them a budget about these matters. So that's what I would say, because it must be very practical. No money, you can't do anything. So, for the programs and everything. I mean, so and we just have to like hang in there and hold it tight, and don't don't let it go any lower than what it is today, I would say. And I think, what I think, as we talk now, it's also a great opportunity to maybe leapfrog on certain things, show that woman resilience, the things that we have that we can actually to leverage in these kind of times, because these are times that we need to think more about family, more about health, more about education, more about developmental, sustaining things, which we on average are more concerned about. So again, I feel this as an opportunity for women to leverage the depth that we have to become more confident.
Absolutely, Oslam, and great thoughts over there. Dharitri.
So I while listening to both Oslam and Beth, was just thinking, I think women everywhere across the globe, if you are poor, you are in the similar situation. So it's a matter of survival if you're a poor woman in India, Nigeria, America, or Turkey. And if you are a woman with resources, you have similar challenges. How do you invest? How do you build? How do you have control? Because again, there's always, so one thread that runs across women from different economic and social strata is having control over their financial resources. It doesn't matter whether you are rich or poor. If you are a woman, you are a woman. You do not have equal access to your financial resources. And I think that is something that we've been hearing for decades now, and we've been hearing today in this conversation that the confidence that a woman needs to have over her financial resources is not proportional to her economic status. So I think, so one can learn from the different kinds of initiatives that's happening across the globe that's really impacting or helping women achieve those targets, the financial literacy targets. I think there's a lot of cross-learning that can happen. That's what Oslam is doing in her fintech on financial behaviors, or what Beth's organization's offering, and what in India our government's offering, or what our non-government organizations and financial institutions are also offering. One thing is also knowledge. How do we harness the power of knowledge and what already exists, and how do we really make it work for us? Because like Aarti, you've got a very good, that compendium of financial resources and investments for women that you brought out for FICCI Ladies organization. So it's how, because that knowledge, we have the resources, but that knowledge is not available to everyone. So women need to have access to the knowledge so that we can make best use of it, and we can use this. So that's something that's, that's been, that I take with me from today's discussion.
No, absolutely, Dharitri. And I think cross-learning is one of the goals of a platform like GlobalWE, where we kind of, have such dialogues so we can learn and synergize and understand what each one of us is doing across the globe, and actually piggyback on that, because that's how we will leap forward. Beth, your last thoughts.
Thank you. I'm privileged to be part of this panel. I think that what is, as I said before, encouraging, I think, to me is that because we all, regardless of where we are in the world, face similar challenges, I think that there are similar problems that together we can tackle. And I agree with that idea of you know, whether you have resources, whether you have an abundance of resources or not. It really is about control and getting back to that idea of financial independence and confidence in ourselves to be able to chart our own destiny financially.
Super. Thank you so much, everyone. There are a couple of more questions, which both in the chat box here, as well as which we've received earlier. I think what we will do is send them to each one of you personally. And if you would like to reply to them, we'll send it back to members who've asked this. But once again, thank you so much. I think this has been such a fabulous discussion, and it was wonderful to hear perspectives from each one of you on how there's a common thread on the urgency on this matter of financial education also. But you know, it's extremely heartening to see how champions like you are working in your own spheres to create this fabulous impact. So without further ado, in the interest of time, I'm going to call our treasurer and president-elect, Leah, to give the closing remarks, please.
Hi, everyone. Wow. Let me just say how thrilled I am that we had this event, how fantastic it was. Thank you to our speakers. You're brilliant, you're passionate, and thank you for being generous and sharing that with all of us today. Even with this pandemic, even with the difficulties that it's presented, we've had multiple silver linings, such as this particular way to pivot our programming to enable empowerment and to expand connectivity, like we just had today. So I'm going to thank our wonderful facilitator, Dr. Arti Gupta, and our marketing chair, Kendall, for putting this wonderful program together, and also to all our other board members who supported you in doing that. Before we let you go, I'd just like to remind you that please join GlobalWE if you have not yet done so. That's at harvardglobalwe.org. We are also always looking for volunteers to join our team. So please look at that part of our website, as well as the donation page. We are a nonprofit, and we could use your support in expanding our programs. Coming up on our calendar, we have the Fireside Chat with Rachel Ingidbion, whose work supports women with disabilities. That'll be on Saturday, December 3rd at 11 a.m. Central Time. Please look out for reminders for that event, as well as other upcoming ones. On behalf of all of the Harvard GlobalWE board members, thank you everyone for coming, for being part of this important dialogue. If GlobalWE board members would please stay on after this, but everybody else, stay well, stay safe. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening or a day or afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you again for joining us. And thank you to our panelists. Much appreciated.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Oslam. Thank you, Dharatri. It was wonderful.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.